Director and President of the Cape Atlantic League, Mike Gatley. Mike, good morning to you.
Mike, good morning. Good to hear from you.
Thanks for hopping on. Thanks for taking some time out to mow your lawn this morning for us. It's a big week for high school football here in South Jersey, especially the Cape Atlantic League. And, you know, before we get into the vote that just happened, take us back a little bit. This same vote was sort of put on the table last year, and it was shot down with a vast majority. You know, what changed from last year to this year to push this forward and finally have this Cape Atlantic League West Jersey Football League merger?
You know, Mike, I mean, as is typical in most situations, there's pockets of things that have happened that if you look at them individually, doesn't really seem like much, but when you start to line them up, then you can start to see, how things change. To have a vote go almost completely opposite of what it was, 2 years ago, lets you know that the climate in football in New Jersey in total, and definitely in South Jersey, is changing. The biggest key, I think, is that the West Jersey Football League had amended their constitution. That was really the stumbling block the first time around. Because of our non-public schools, particularly St. Joe, in their constitution, you can only play up or down one group size. Well, we already had St. Joe, one of the smallest schools in the Cape Atlantic League, playing group fives and winning. So that wasn't really looked at as a possibility of, having St. Joe play up a group and certainly not down one. So, that obviously was, a serious roadblock. What Bud Kowal, who's the president of the West Jersey Football League, what we had discussed, when we were submitting our application for a second time, is that now that we're having all these discussions, and I'm also on the public-non-public committee with the NJSIA, and what that committee has done, Mike, is really just open up dialogue. Being on that committee, they always say you're never too old to learn. I mean, we've got some great non-public schools up north and down south here who really want to work this thing out. And I think what you're starting to see is the North take a little bit of a picture of what West Jersey is doing, because they're working right now on a super league up there with 115 schools, whereas now West Jersey, taking us in, has 83. But it was a change in the constitution for West Jersey, which was the key. Now you can play up or down more than one group size, which gives not only some of the non-publics an opportunity, but it also gives some of the publics an opportunity too.
The Cape Atlantic League is really so unique in terms of it's just different than other leagues. I mean, you have some small Group 2 schools. You have some smaller non-public schools like a St. Joe who is just become a powerhouse. I mean, you have the big Group 4s, Group 5s. So scheduling-wise, I mean, we're all signs pointing to this eventually. I know you guys go through scheduling cycles every 2 years, and you try to mix it up year to year. But, I mean, it just seems like there hasn't been a solution based on the variety of school sizes and sort of quote-unquote power football programs in the Cape Atlantic League.
Yeah, and Mike, you're real close to this situation. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I tip my hat to everybody in the Cape Atlantic League, all the ADs. I'll tell you, our room is so much different than when I first came into the league, as far as people wanted to work with each other and trying to put kids in the best situations possible. The easiest way to say how difficult it is to get football schedules that are competitive, balanced, however you want to say it, is that we can get most schools 5 or 6 games. It's those crossover games which begin to cause the problems. And this is where, in a league like West Jersey, when you got 83 schools, now Pleasantville is not crossing over with an Oprest or maybe a Mainland. They're going to cross over with, maybe a Clayton or a Wildwood or somebody like that. So, on both ends, it helps schools. And it's not just the small schools. If you look at Mainland, if I were to look at ourselves, we're probably going to do the most traveling out of anybody, because there's only 2 Group 4s in the Cape Atlantic League. So if we're playing Group 4 schools, we're going to have to do a little traveling. But the bottom line is that I don't think you're going to see all that much change in really who plays who. At the end of the day, if you take our Group 5s, they'll probably all be in a conference by themselves, and they may even call it the American Division, as opposed to the American Conference. So, it's an opportunity more so, Mike, for the crossovers to be able to fill a full schedule and give every school an opportunity to compete. If at that point, hey, you're having problems building your program or whatever, you got to look intrinsically. And I've used Clayton as an example, and everybody I've talked to, less than probably 3 years ago, Clayton was asking for not a full schedule in football because they were concerned with numbers and being able to put a team out year to year. Now being in the West Jersey, they made the NJSIA playoffs last year. There's no better poster child for what can happen to any program. If you're interested in building it, we can't help ourselves. We can't help certain schools in our league build their program, particularly with the numbers in football going down as it is with concussions and injuries and all the other things that are transpiring. So I think in a lot of ways this marriage, it's a great time for it, and I think it's becoming a model for what may be also happening up in North Jersey.
Checking in with Mike Gatley right now on the South Jersey Sports Report. Mike, of course, athletic director over at Mainland, also president of the Cape Atlantic League. If you're just joining us, the big news this week, the Cape Atlantic League will be joining the West Jersey Football League in 2016. That vote was passed 55-11. And, Mike, you touched on this a little bit earlier on, but the situation in North Jersey and really, ADs trying to figure out what's going on up there. You have a number of non-public powerhouses that, quite frankly, the public schools are tired of playing. And, you mentioned you're on that public, non-public committee. Was this vote, this marriage between the Cal and the West Jersey Football League and the way it passed, almost a result of not wanting to go the direction of maybe North Jersey in terms of separating publics and non-publics?
Well, Mike, here's the thing. It's interesting how the timing of this has come out. I mean, obviously this public, non-public committee, we've been meeting for probably like 7 months. The first couple of meetings we had, nobody even knew we existed. Then all of a sudden, everybody wants to know what we're talking about. The interesting thing is our application to West Jersey and the discussions that I've had with Bud Colwell from Ewing had nothing to do with public and non-public. In fact, they want all the non-public schools to stay in West Jersey, hence also accepting us. So even if this vote, which we're hoping really at the end of the day, we don't have to go to in December, and I think this non-public committee has really opened up dialogue. I guess the serendipitous effect is that when you start talking about separating schools, maybe we need to sit down and say, hey, is there any way we can work this out without doing it? And that's exactly what's happening. The fact that we got accepted at this time is just really ironic timing compared to all the different things that are going on, because our application has been in for, months and months. So, you know what? North Jersey drives a lot of the bus in reference to football and a lot of other sports because of the density of the schools. I mean, there's just more votes up in that area, et cetera. But that committee that we're on, and interesting, Mike, the non-public schools in the north that are on the non-public committee, they don't want to play the public schools and beat them 55-0. And that's something that a lot of people probably don't know because we don't, get the Star Ledger down here, or we're not in touch with Paramus Catholic or Don Bosco. Trust me when I tell you, they don't want to play. They know it's not helping them either. They would rather have a 4 or 5 game schedule against the other non-publics and then go out and get exposure games. So with that type of philosophy and that type of openness, we're on this committee and we're saying, you know what, I think we're going to be able to make this all work, and that's where we're at right now. So I really feel positive that not only for the Cape and our public and non-public schools, but for also the general football in the state of New Jersey, I think we're going to be able to solve this problem and understand that this public, non-public committee, the football scheduling is just one of them. One of the issues. We're dealing with the transfer waiver form, which myself and Larry White are basically rewriting. So there's a lot of things that are still going on in reference to transfers and athletic recruiting and all. It's just that obviously football takes the forefront, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
Scheduling-wise, I mean, it's interesting, and again, you hinted on this earlier on, but people from the outside might think, hey, you're joining a different league, the schedule is going to completely change. Well, that's not necessarily the case. A lot of these Cape Atlantic League teams could see a lot of the same teams on their schedules. They might see some new ones as well. And then the other part of that question, Mike, is that, I think it's a home run. I think a lot of people think it's a home run, but maybe the only negative component to this is that playoff-wise, in the past, teams would most likely see a team they wouldn't have faced during the regular season. Under this agreement, is it more likely that a team might face a team they've already played in the postseason?
Yeah, but you know what, Mike, and I know football is a little bit different than most sports, but I can tell you, in soccer and in basketball. I mean, we've played, and actually I'm going to give you another. We've actually played Ocean City one year 4 times because we played them in the tip-off tournament over in Ocean City. We played them twice during the season, and then we threw them in the playoffs. So, you know, I don't think there's any way you can avoid that. I think with the scouting and the level with Huddle and the level of opportunities that people have to see other teams, you know, it sometimes it might be a blessing in disguise of not having to play a team because, you know, you don't get too comfortable or you don't realize, you know, hey, maybe we can't do this. So I guess there's really both sides to that. Quite honestly, you are correct. We could end up, you know, not playing somebody and then, you know, seeing them, a local team in, you know, in the playoffs. But I look at it also like we've saved Millville and Violent rivalry. You know, if Hamilton and St. Joe want to rekindle that will be up to those schools. You know, we've not played Ocean City in football consistently because of, again, PowerPoint, strength of program, enrollment, and ever. We don't always play them every cycle. Well, there's probably a good chance we would now, and that's a great rivalry. It's not about winning or losing. It's about the kids. And both of those schools, I mean, whenever we go at it, and it doesn't matter what, it could be tiddlywinks, you know, the kids are interested. So I think it's going to bring, you know, some interesting matchups, and it's clearly going to bring potentially some interesting crossover games, which you would never get, and which we never had access to. You know, we tried to join with the Colonial Conference. They're pretty much set. They've got a full schedule. There's no one else out there other than maybe a couple schools in the Shore Conference who have contacted us about crossovers, but very lightly. There's nowhere for our schools to go to get comparable crossover games, and that's really the key to me to this entire West Jersey application, and obviously at this point, acceptance, is that it wasn't about just the league schedule. It was about filling a full schedule and giving every kid in the Cape Atlantic League, every coach, every program, an opportunity to get better. And that's really, the bottom line at the end of the day.
One last question, Mike. Is it going to be strange not to talk about Cape Atlantic League football in a couple years? I mean, you know, that label will pretty much go away as everyone kind of goes into this West Jersey Football League heading.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you know, I'm a Cal guy through and through. I mean, I grew up in this league, and you know, but I think the key, and I hate to use a cliche, but I think is very appropriate. You know, intelligence is continuing to do things at work, and they're working out great, and ignorance is continuing to do things, and you know, maybe you can get yourself in a better situation. I really believe, and believe me, I've got a couple, you know, emails of, you know, I'm just, you know, mantling the league and whatever, and I understand that, and I understand where people are coming from, but at the same time, I'm charged with looking at everybody. I'm not charged with looking at Mainland or when I was at Hamilton or what does my football schedule look like. I'm charged with about 1,200 or 1,400 kids and the rest of our ADs of, you know, putting them in the best, you know, best possible situation. So, yeah, it will be different. Mike, I don't know how we're going to handle, like, you know, we have our all-star dinner in the fall, but, you know, it's all going to play out, and it's all going to be really, really fun. And, you know, you're going to see some matchups year to year. There's an appeal process. There's ways, you know, they're going to look at programs. They're going to actually be able, if you're doing better, put you in a little bit better conference. If you need a little help, you can get put in the conference of other teams that need help. We don't have that kind of flexibility. We're trying to survive and give everybody full schedules down here with, like you said, schools of more varying size than any other conference in the state. There's no conference in the state that has the issues of size that we have.
Great insight from Mike Gatley, again, president of the Cape Atlantic League, athletic director over at Mainland. The big news this week, Cape Atlantic League joining the West Jersey Football League effective 2016. Mike, really appreciate the time. We'll let you get back to your yard work on this beautiful Saturday.
Always a pleasure, Mike. Thanks. Take care. Have a great weekend.
You too. That's Mike Gatley, again, president of the Cape Atlantic League. We're going to talk a lot